Good day everyone, we are the last group from BS Ed 11M and today we would like to discuss about assessment, learning resources, and instructional input accommodation. But before we proceed to our main topic, I'm going to discuss the classroom rules. So R stands for raise your hand if you want to speak or ask. U stands for under your chair, make sure to keep it clean. L stands for listen attentively. E stands for ensure that you are stay hydrated. And last one, S, stay positive. After I discuss the classroom rules, now let's proceed to the learning objectives for this topic. At the end of this lesson, the learners will be able to first to identify or to define what is assessment. Second, to identify the types of assessments, the advantages and limitations. And lastly, to determine the instructional and test accommodations and the challenges implementing. So, to give you an idea about on the topic that we will be discussing today, this lesson presents inclusive and alternative education together with the types of assessment use, the advantages and limitations, and present the instructionals and test accommodations, and the purpose and challenges implementing to these programs. Now, let's define what is assessment. So, assessment are the key to identifying the progress of learners and ensuring they are either on their way to reaching or have reached the standard required to complete a course. Assessments are not conducted solely to test a learner. They should be constructed in a way that will help the learner progress. Assessment should not just be conducted at the end of a course, but should be used as a tool to track a learner's progress and support them accordingly. So, we all know naman na marami tayong assessment na or maraming assessment na ginagamit ang ating mga teachers inside the classroom. Kabilang na dito yung pagtitake sa atin ng quiz, mga exam, na kung saan nalalaman ng ating teachers or malalaman nila kung ano nga ba yung mga dapat pang i-improve ng kanilang learner pagdating doon sa quiz or exam na pinag-take nila sa kanilang mga learner. Ito ring assessment, inside the classroom, nalalaman or na-identify ng teachers kung ano nga ba yung need pang i-improve ng kanilang learners, especially on their skills and on the activities that they do inside the classroom. It says here also that assessments are not conducted solely to test a learner. They should be constructed in the way that will help the learner progress. So, hindi lang dapat ginagamit yung assessment para lang malaman or ma-identify ng isang teacher kung ano nga ba yung need i-improve ng kanilang learner. Kundi, ginagamit rin yung assessment para ma-help yung kanilang learners to improve and para ipaintindi sa kanilang mga learners kung ano pa yung need nilang i-improve or gawin inside the classroom. So after I discuss what is the definition of assessment, now let's proceed to the types of assessment. So we have three types of assessment. First is observation checklist, second one is anecdotal report, and the last one is portfolio assessment. So for this topic, I will be discussing the definition of each type of assessment, how it will help the teachers, the advantages and limitation of these types of assessment. So the first type of assessment is observation checklist. What is observation checklist? So when we say observation checklist, it's a structured assessment tool used to systematically record specific behaviors, skills, or conditions as they happen. Its primary purpose is to provide a standardized objective framework to evaluate performance, track progress, and eliminate reliance on memory or gut feelings. So, here's the observation checklist. Ginagamit to ng mga teachers to identify or to know kung ano nga ba yung behavior or skills na pinapakita ng kanilang learners inside the classroom. So, dito sa observation checklist, kadalasan papel siya na kung saan nakalagay yung may yes or no lang yung iaano ng kanilang learners. Like mga ano siya, question, simple question na kung saan yung i-check lang ng learners nila kung yes ba or no yung kanilang sagot doon sa observation checklist na pinagawa ng kanilang teachers. So, dito sa observation checklist, na ini-help yung learners to identify kung ano nga ba yung kanyang skills or performance na pinakita inside the classroom. So, how does it work? So, paano nga ba gumagana yung observation checklist? So, the observer marks a simple check, which is yes or no, or observe or not observe, or a basic rating scale next to each item on the checklist as it happens. So, yun nga, kagaya ng sinabi ko kanina na kung saan nagbibigay yung teachers ng checklist para sa kanilang learners, like mga simple questions, like 1 to 10, then sa right side or left side ng assessment checklist na yon, nandun yung choice na yes or no or observe or not observe. So next is how does it help the teachers? So paano nga ba ito nakakatulong itong observation na checklist na to sa ating mga teachers? So, it allows educators to systematically track developmental milestone, assess teaching effectiveness, and adjust lesson plans to better suit their students' learning needs. So, tracking students' development and behavior and improving teaching methods. So, itong observation checklist na to, hindi lang siya nakakatulong sa ating mga learners, nakakatulong din ito sa ating mga teachers dahil natatrack nila yung mga needs or ano pa yung mga needs ng kanilang learners or ano yung kanilang need na i-improve inside the classroom. So, now let's talk about the advantages of observation checklist. So, what are the advantages of observation checklist? So, I have here 3 advantages of observation checklist. First is, it is quick and efficient, na kung saan mas mabilis or mas madali siyang gamitin ng ating mga learners. Especially yung mga learners na hindi masyadong or mahirap maintindihan yung assessment na yun. Second one is, it is easy to use. Ayun nga, na kung saan, i-check lang ng learners kung yes ba kung agree ba sila or hindi. Last one is actionable and trackable. So, dito na-identify agad ng teachers kung ano nga ba yung mga need i-improve ng kanilang learner pagdating sa performance and skills ng kanilang students. And the last one is yung limitation. Of course, hindi naman mawawala yung limitations dyan or yung kung ano nga ba yung mga limitations ng pagdating sa observation checklist. So, the first one is lack of qualitative depth na kung saan yun nga, yes or no lang yung na-identify ng teachers. Hindi nalalaman ng teachers kung ano yung reason kung bakit nag-yes or nag-no yung kanilang learner pagdating doon sa assessment na yon. So, Next is lack of context. So, bakit? Bakit siya nag-yes? Bakit siya nag-no pagdating dun sa question na yon? And the last one is cultural and linguistic limitations. So, ayan. Since may mga, hindi lang naman yung mga learners natin nanggaling dito. Like, meron tayong mga learners na nanggagaling sa ibang cultural, like mga Muslims, Aita. So, syempre, na ano yung kanilang pagkakaintindi or pagkakaano doon sa assessment na binigay ng kanilang teachers. So, importante sa teachers na i-explain, magbigay ng clear na instructions pagdating doon sa assessment na yun, especially dito sa observation checklist. So, the next one is the anecdotal report. So, what is anecdotal report? So, an anecdotal report is a brief written record or note of a snapshot in time documenting what a child says or does during classroom activities and routines. So, using anecdotal records is one way to teachers to collect informations about a child's development and learning experiences. So, dito naman sa anecdotal report, inside the classroom, tinutulungan yung teachers na kung saan na nado-document niya agad or nare-record niya agad kung ano nga ba yung observation niya inside the classroom, especially sa kanyang mga learners. So, dito rin, using anecdotal record is one way to teachers to collect informations about a child's development and learning experiences. So, yun nga, so, nakakollect ng teachers kung ano nga ba yung nangyayari. Then, dito, hindi lang teachers yung nag-way para malaman yung records ng kanilang learners. Nagkakaroon din dito sa anecdotal report ng parang one-on-one na kung saan ina-ask ng teachers kung ano nga ba yung experiences na nararanasan ng kanilang learners inside the classroom. And dito sa anecdotal report, nado-document or kino-compile ng teachers yung kanyang status ng kanyang learner. So, how does it work? So, paano nga ba gumagana ang anecdotal report inside the classroom, especially to our teachers? So, an anecdotal report functions by breaking an observation down into three main steps. So, first one is objective observations. So, ayun nga na real time, like, na document agad ng teachers in time to time kung ano nga ba yung experiences ng kanilang learners. Second one is recording context. So, it captures the environment and circumstances surrounding the event which give the actions meaning. So, the last one is interpretation. This is optional only. So, dito, nalalaman na ng teacher or inaano niya na kung bakit nga ba ganun yung behavior ng kanilang learners inside the classroom based doon sa observations niya sa kanyang learners. So, next is, how does it helps the teachers? So, ayan. Paano nga ba etong anecdotal report na to nakakatulong sa ating mga teachers? So, anecdotal reports provide teachers with objective, factual observations of specific student behaviors and interactions. So, these details record help educators personalize instructions accurately, track the behavioral and academic progress over time, and provide concrete evidence during parent-teacher conference. So, ayun nga, dito sa teachers, so, hindi lang siya for learners. So, syempre, ito ay para rin sa teachers na kung saan magagamit niya once na nagkaroon ng PTA meeting kanyang mga ang parents ng kanyang mga learner na kung saan pwede niya itong magamit as evidence ng kung ano nga ba yung behavior ng kanilang mga anak inside sa classroom, kung ano nga ba yung mga performance skills na pinapakita ng kanilang mga anak inside the classroom. So, what are the advantages of using the anecdotal report? So, I have here three advantages. First is to capture natural behavior na kung saan, yun nga, time to time, like, on the spot, nakikita ng teachers kung ano nga ba yung performance or ano nga ba yung um, behavior ng kanilang learners. Second is personalized insight. So, ito, ina-highlights yung abilities, interests, challenges of a specific individual ng kanilang learners. And the last one, it is easy to share. Na kung saan, madaling maintindihan ng mga parents kasi teachers yung nag-observe ng kanilang learner inside the classroom. And the last one is the limitations of anecdotal report. So, what are the limitations of anecdotal report? So, first is the susceptibility to bias. So, minsan, hindi naman maiiwasan sa classroom na magkaroon ng bias yung mga teachers. Siyempre, time to time nilang na observe yung mga skills ng kanilang learners. So, hindi natin pwedeng masabi dito sa anecdotal report na to na naging bias ba yung teachers sa isang learners. So, second one is the inconsistent reporting. So, without standardized guidelines, the quality and depth of these records vary widely depending on the teacher's memory, observational skills, and available time. So, dito sa inconsistent reporting, so, here, inaano, kung ano lang yung natandaan ng isang teachers na kung saan isusulat niya doon sa report ng kanyang learner. Kung ano lang yung nakita niya, ano lang yung na-observe niya pag doon sa kanyang learners, sa performance and skills na pinapakita ng kanyang learners. The last one, lack of context. So, ayun nga, a single recorded incident only provides a snapshot of a moment read out of context. So, it fails to reveal the underlying cause, triggers, or long-term patterns behind the student's action. So, dito sa anecdotal report, hindi na na-identify kung ano nga ba yung cause, kung ano nga ba yung dahilan, kung bakit ganun yung naging behavior ng kanilang learners. Katulad siya na doon sa nauna kong types of assessment which is observation checklist. And the last one is portfolio assessment. So the purpose of portfolio assessment is to measure a student's growth, learning progress, and academic achievements over time by evaluating a purposeful collections of their work. It documents a student's academic journey and skills development from the beginning to the end of a school year. So, kung kanina sa naunang types of assessment, nalalaman lang or na-identify lang ng teachers kung ano nga ba yung need to improve ng kanilang learners, students inside the classroom, kung ano lang ba yung skills na pinapakita ng kanilang students. Dito naman sa portfolio assessment, dito na ginagather ng kanilang learners kung ano nga ba yung mga activities output or yung kanilang yung mga work na ginawa nila inside the classroom, like performance tasks, the quizzes, the assessment, kinocompile nila, ino-organize nila, then, ayun na yung magiging basihan na kung saan nalalaman na ng teachers kung talaga bang nag-growth and natuto yung kanilang learners pagdating doon. So, how does it works the portfolio assessment? So, ayan. Paano nga ba nag-work yung portfolio assessment, especially sa ating mga learners? So teachers and students establish clear learning objectives and define the specific criteria or standards that on the portfolio needs to meet. So students review their compiled work and select the best pieces or the pieces that best demonstrate their learning growth. So they organize these items logically, often including a table of contents and a brief cover letter. So, etong portfolio assessment, nag-work siya by compiling the outputs of a learners na kung saan ino-organize ng learners from kung ano yung unang activities na kanilang ginawa from the end, kung ano yung huli nilang ginawang activities doon sa teachers na yon or kung ano man yung kanilang gawan ng portfolio assessment. So, ayun, dito rin papasok yung, syempre, yung table of contents na kung saan naka-organize, yung pagkakasunod-sunod, yung pages, kung yon. Then, gumagawa rin ng cover or ng creative and napapakita ng learners yung pagiging creative nila sa paggawa ng portfolio assessment. So, how the... Oh, wait lang. So, next one is how portfolio assessment helps the teachers. So, portfolio assessment helps teachers by providing a comprehensive, authentic pictures of student growth over time rather than just a single test score. So, bukod sa mga assessment like quizzes, tests na kung saan scores lang yung pinapakita, dito, hinahelp yung teachers na malaman or makita ulit nila yung mga ginawa ng kanilang learners na kung saan ma-develop nila or ma-identify nila yung growth ng kanilang learners. So, next one, what are the advantages of portfolio assessment or yung mga positive sa paggamit ng portfolio assessment? So, dito papasok yung holistic growth tracking na kung saan hina-highlight ng portfolio assessment yung growth ng learners. Second is to promote self-reflection na kung saan ini-engage yung students to being an active by organize their outputs or their final outputs. And the last one is to fosters motivations na kung saan nakaka-help ito sa learners para mas ma-develop pa or mas ma-grow pa yung kanilang skills and performance. And the last one is the limitations. So, syempre, bukod sa mga advantages, meron ding limitations ang portfolio assessment. So, ano nga ba yon? So, first one is scoring subjectivity. So, evaluating portfolios can be highly subjective because every student's portfolio is unique, assigning a fair and unbiased grade becomes difficult. So, dito, sa portfolio assessment, syempre hindi rin maiiwasan yung pagkakaroon ng bias ng teacher. Syempre, like for example, yung output ng isa ay creative, mas maganda, mas pinaghandaan. Yung isa naman ay parang kinompile lang. So, syempre, doon magkakaroon ng bias pagdating sa scoring ng output ng kanilang learner. Second one is time and resource intensive. So, organizing, reviewing, and evaluating portfolios requires a massive amount of time from both teachers and students. So, dito, yun nga, time and resource intensive na kung saan mas dumadami yung work ng teacher kung iisa-isahin niya pa. Like, mas magiging overload yung work ng student. Then, ganun na rin sa learners. And lastly is reliability and validity. Validity. Because students select their own best pieces or complete different tasks. Portfolios may sometimes yield inconsistent or narrow evidence of a student's broader educational mastery. So, ayun nga, hindi talaga mawawala yung bias. Kasi, syempre, pipili yung teachers kung ano nga ba yung best output para sa kanila, kung ano nga ba yung mas magandang portfolio or compilation na ginawa ng kanilang learners. So, yun lang yung three types of assessment, the observation checklist, the anecdotal report, and the portfolio assessment, and the definition of assessment. So, I hope I explained well to all of you the definition and the different between these three. So, thank you so much.
Good day everyone. Let's talk about the instructional accommodations. Accommodations help students with disabilities to access instruction and to be demonstrate their learning. These accommodations are included in a student's individual education program or 504 plan. As discussed below, these accommodations can be implemented during instruction and testing. Ibig sabihin po nito is ito yung mga tumutulong o nagbabago ng pagtuturo upang mas matulungan yung mga batang may kapansanan, yung mga disabilities na matuto at maging maipakita po yung mga kaalaman nila pagdating sa mga skills and yung kakayahan po nilang matuto sa pag-aaral. At nakalagay po dito yung 504 na plan na pinasyal na plano para sa mga estudyante at mas sigurong naayon ang suporta para sa kanilang pag-aaral. First type is special education or SPED programs. Special education programs are designed to cater to the unique needs of learners with disabilities, giftedness, or talents through tailored instructional responses. Ang SPED ay special para sa mga batang may kapansanan o natatanging may kaalaman at kakayahan. Para sa special education, ito yung binibigyan sila ng mga special needs, yung mga like pangangailangan nila sa schools and yung treatment na gustong ibigay para sa kanila. Let's move in core components. Include the individualized education plan or EIP, specialized curriculum and related services. Kabilang dito ang EIP, special na curriculum sa iba't ibang suporta ng services para sa mga batang nangangailangan at gabay kung paano sila tutulungan at maging aktibo para sa kanilang pag-aaral. Specialized curriculum modifies the pacing, materials, and content of lessons. Related services include speech therapy, physical therapy, and counseling. Naangkop ang paraan para sa mga pagtuturo upang hikayatin po sila na maging aktibo sa mga activities para sa mga may special needs. Kasama rin po dito yung therapy at counseling upang masuportahan ang kabuuang pag-unlad ng mga mag-aaral. And let's move and setting. The setting is SPED includes self-contained classroom, resource rooms, and special education centers. May iba't ibang lugar kung saan isinagawa ang SPED programs. Self-resources rooms are spaces where students receive additional support during part of the day. Self-contained classroom are special classes inside regular school inclusively for SPED learners. Ito po yung hiwalay na klase para sa mga SPED at sa mga regular na paaralan. Ito yung tumatanggap sila ng dagdag na tulong para sa mga nangangailangan ng tulong at mga needs ng mga estudyante. Special Education Center are separate institutions dedicated to learners with specific needs. The principles. The principle of SPED include zero, reject, least restrictive environment, and non-discriminatory evaluation. Ito po yung mga espesyal na paaralan para particular na pangangailangan ng mga mag-aral at mahalagang prinsipyo na SPED at ang pagtanggap sa lahat ng bata at nagbibigay patas na edukasyon. Zero reject means every child has the right to free and appropriate education. Less restrictive environment means students should learn with non-disabled peers as much as possible. Ibig sabihin po nito, walang batang dapat tanggihan sa pag-aaral. Kung gusto po nilang mag-aral at gusto po nilang matuto, ay lagi po natin silang sundin at hindi po ibig sabihin na kung may kapansanan ka ay hindi na dapat pwedeng matuto. And nangangahulugan itong patas at walang diskriminasyon na ng kakayahan ng estudyante para sila po ay matuto at umangat po sa buhay para po makamit po yung mga pangangailangan po nila at yung gusto po nilang matupad. The second type is inclusion programs. Inclusion programs aim to place learners with additional needs directly into general education classroom, fostering a sense of belonging and shared community. Ito po yung mga batang may special na pangailangan ay kasama po sa regular na klase. Ito po yung core components. Include co-teaching models, universal design for learning or UDL, and peer support network. Kabilang dito yung pagtutulungan ng mga guro, flexible learning methods, at suporta mula sa kapwa estudyante. Yung po yung pagtutulungan po ng mga guro para suportahan po yung isang estudyante na may pangangailangan at mga kapwa estudyante po na yung tutulungan po siya sa kung nahirapan po ba or may hindi po naiintindihan. Co-teaching allows general and SPED teachers to work together in one classroom. Nagtutulungan ng dalawang guro upang masuportahan ang lahat ng mag-aaral para maging masigla at maging masigla ang mga mag-aaral upang maintindihan ng lahat ng aralin para sa kanilang hinikaya upang nawawala. Co-teaching allows general and SPED teachers to work together in one classroom. UDL provides flexible ways of teaching and assessment. Peer support networks encourage students to help one another. Nagbibigay ito ng iba't ibang paraan ng pagtuturo upang mas maintindihan ng lahat ng aralin. hinihikayat nito ang pagtutulungan at pakikipagkaibigan ng mga estudyante upang yung isang estudyante po ay hindi nakakaawa at hindi po siya nalilip out para hindi po siya natatakot every time na may lumalapit po sa kanya. And the settings include full inclusion and partial inclusion. In full inclusion, learners stay in regular classroom the whole day. May dalawang uri ng conclusion. Ibig sabihin, buong araw silang kasama sa regular na klase. In partial inclusion, learners spend sometimes in regular classes and sometimes in specialized support sessions. Samantala, sa partial inclusion ay may oras para sa regular class at may oras din para sa special na suporta. Yung full inclusion po, ibig sabihin, buong araw silang kasama sa regular klase. Yung mga may special na needs kasi po. Yung naman po, yung partial inclusion is may oras para sa mga regular class like the whole day and para din sa special na suporta. Let's move in principles. Include diversity as strength, equitable access, and collaborative practice. Ibig sabihin, pinapalaga ng pagkakaiba ng tao, pantay at oportunidad at pagtutulungan ng lahat. Ibig sabihin po nito, pinapahalagan ang mga iba't ibang may mga taon like yung katutubo and yung mga ay tagalog po. And lahat po ay kailangan magtulungan upang pantay-pantay po yung oportunidad para sa lahat ng mamamayan sa Pilipinas.
Set.
The last type is indigenous and degenerations and contextualization of curriculum. This accommodation adapts curriculum content to align with the cultural, geographical, and social realities of the learners, making education deeply meaningful and respectful of identity. This accommodation adapts lesson according to the learner's culture, language, and community. Ito po yung pag-aangkop ng mga aralin batay sa kultura at pamumuhay ng mga mag-aaral. Ito po yung may kaya at yung may hindi po kayang mag-aral. Its core components include localized instructional materials, mother tongue-based multilingual education or MTB, MLE, and community elder integration. Localized instructional materials use local stories, traditions, and practices in teaching. MTB, MLE uses the learner's first language as the medium of instructions. Kabilang dito yung mga paggamit ng local materials, sariling wika at tulong ng mga nakakatanda sa komunidad. Ginagamit po dito yung lokal na kultura at karanasan ng bilang mag-aaral. Ginagamit ang unang wika ng bata upang mas madaling maintindihan ang aralin tulad ng mother tongue at Pilipino. Community elders also help in sharing indigenous knowledge and traditions. Tumutulong po ang mga nakakatanda sa pagtuturo upang ang wika at kultura para sa mga batang gustong matuto. Ito po yung mga unang mga kultura ng mga matatanda na ginagamit po nila upang matuto ang mga bata na tumayo sa kanilang mga sariling paa. Next, please. Include indigenous peoples, education centers, community-based learning spaces, and contextualized schools. May mga espesyal na lugar ng pagkatuto na naayon sa kultura at komunidad ng mga katutubong Pilipino. Like yung yung ICAP pala. Yun yung mga batang nakapaalang namuhay sa bundok. Sila po yung mga Pilipino na gustong mag-aral pero wala masyadong paaralan doon dahil nga wala masyadong pera, ganon, or yung mga pamumuhay nila is hindi kagaya dito sa bayan, ganon, na madali lang makapasok dahil libre lang at may kaya para po yung hindi tulad ng mga nasa yung mga AITA is hindi po nila kayang suportahan po yung mga anak nila para pag-aralin at para po may matuto sila and yung the principles include is the principles include cultural responsiveness, relevance and functionality, and self-determination. Ibig sabihin, dapat igalang ang kultura ng mga Pilipino upang kapaki-pakinabang ang edukasyon at mabigyan ng boses ang mga komunidad na matulungan ang kanilang mga anak. And yung mga magulang na nais mapag-aral yung kanilang mga anak ay nananawagan sa mga tataas-taasan upang mabigay yung pangangailangan para sa mga batang gustong mga pag-aral at makamit yung mga gusto nilang maabot sa buhay. And dito sa contextualization of the curriculum is naayon sa kultura at komunidad ng mga katutubong Pilipino. Yun lang po.
Proceed to test accommodation. Dito sa test accommodation for learners with special need, that includes of learners. Need in national assessment aims to measure their progress in the attainment of learning standard of the curriculum. Dito, layunin nito na makita kung paano natututunan ng isang bata na may disability na maunawaan at matutunan ang tinuturo ng isang teacher. Katulad ng ibang tao, katulad natin na normal, walang disability, na kaya natin matutunan ang lahat ng bagay sa isang salita lang. Dito naman, sa test accommodation, karamihan dito ay ang mga batang may special need. Kailangan natin masubaybayan ang bawat isa at unawain sila. Ito ang test accommodation. Alternative Learning System, o di kaya tinatawag nating ALS program, is a parallel learning system in the Philippines that provides a particular option to the existing formal instruction when one does not have or cannot access formal education in school. ALS is alternative or substitute ALS. Includes both a formal and informal source of knowledge and skill. Lahat naman tayo alam ang ALS program. Dito pumapasok ang isang estudyanteng hindi kayang sumabay katulad sa atin. Hindi kayang sumabay pumasok araw-araw dahil may obligasyon sila. Karamihan dito may anak, may trabaho, o di kaya pamilyadong tao na. Dito sa ALS program nagsisilbi itong katumbas na daan tugon sa bantayang edukasyon na sumasaklaw sa antas ng elementarya at sekundarya. Ngunit, hindi araw-araw napapasok sa silid-aralan. Katulad nga ng sinabi ko, dito pumapasok ang isang magulang or di kaya pamilyadong tao at nagtatrabaho. Dahil hindi sila maka-attend ng isang linggong pasok, nag-try silang pumasok sa ALS program. Pero sa ALS program, hindi siya katulad ng grade 10. Dahil mas mahirap dito. Kailangan mong ipasa ang isang test or finals na tinatawag nila para makagraduate ka sa ALS program. How those ALS work in the Philippines? In the Philippines, alternative learning system is implemented by DepEd. Ayan, in-implement nga po siya ng DepEd. Dahil sa mga kabataan na walang kakayahang pumasok sa pang-araw-araw na pasok. Through the Bureau of Alternative Learning System, BALS, sinabi ko nga nung una, na walang kakayahang pumasok ng silid-aralan dahil nga may obligasyon na sila o di kaya naghahanap ng trabaho para makatulong sa pang-araw-araw na buhay. May mga challenges din dito sa ALS. Katulad na lang ng kulang sa facilitator. Also have only a little over 6,846 teachers to reach the target learners and provide them with appropriate alternative learning opportunity. Dahil nga bilang lang ang napasok sa ALS at bilang din ang guro dito, kulang sila sa kagamitan o kulang sila sa pagtuturo dito. Ayan, may isa pa. Implementation of senior high school under K-12 program. Dito, nag-offer of senior high school to ALS if adopt would be a major challenges having no woman resource available for various track as well as the absent of instructor, facilities and equipment at community learning center. Adaptation of senior high school would be a challenges. Ayan nga, katulad nga ng ALS, pwede din tayo makapasok sa K-12 program kapag natapos natin ang ALS program. Makakatapos ka ng grade 11 and grade 12 at makukuha mo ang kursong gusto mo dahil nakapagtapos ka din ng ALS program. Sakop na nento ang lahat ng program pagkapasok mo ng K-12. Let's proceed to out of school youth. O di kaya OSY refers to individual with the age bracket typically defined as adolescent and young adults. who are not enrolled in any program or non-formal education program and are not current, employed, or engaged in any livelihood activity. Dito po, yung mga kabataang hindi nakakapasok ng paaralan. Dahil karamihan sa atin, kulang sa PSA, card, o di kaya hindi naaasikaso ng magulang. Dahil nga kabataan sila, hindi nila kayang asikasuhin ang pag-aaral nila. Hindi sila nakakapag-enroll sa kahit anong paaralan dahil very young age pa sila. How does OIC work in the Philippines? Intervention operates through a coordinate multi-agency system designed to identify, support, and provide opportunity for young people who are neither studying or working. The process follows a clear cycle from identification to sustainable development, with program acro on laws like the Magna Carta of Out-of-School Young, RA 10665, and the ALS Act of 2020, RA 1510. Ayun nga, wala silang opportunity na makapag-enroll sa paaralan dahil nga sa kakulangan din ng pera, kakulangan din ng pag-aaruga, kakulangan ng requirements. Dahil dito, madaming challenges sa out-of-school young. Ayan. Challenges implement in OSY. Difficult in access, hard to reach group, many reside in remote rural areas like isla, communities, mountain regions, informal settlements, or conflict-affected zone. Ay nga dahil sa taga-bundok sila, taga-isla, hindi nila kayang pumunta ng bayan para makapag-aral. O di kaya, napapanood natin, di ba, karamihan sa kabataan, gumagawa ng paraan para makapag-aral. Pero sa karamihan din sa kabataan, hindi sila gumagawa ng paraan para makapag-aral. Parang gusto na lang nila, ganito na lang sila habang buhay. Parang walang pinag-aralan, walang alam. Ayan. Low public awareness. Many young and their families are not fully informed about the rights under RA 10665 of the service available to them. Ayan, dahil nga hindi sila nakapag-aral, hindi din nila alam kung ano yung RA 10665 or di kaya Magna Carta of Out-of-School Young. Ayan nga, dahil sa kakulangan ng pera or di kaya hindi makakayanang makapag-aral sa bayan o di kaya sa malapit na paaralan.